Look out your window, step into a bustling train station, or walk down the neon-lit alleys of any megacity on Earth, and you will see it, a tiny, unassuming brown bird hopping fearlessly among the concrete cracks. This is a house sparrow, pars domesticus, the ubiquitous Chidiya, an animal so deeply woven into the background of human life that it has become virtually invisible to our conscious minds. We dismiss it as a fragile, harmless backyard singer, completely oblivious to the terrifying reality that we are looking at one of the most aggressive, biologically resilient, and dominant avian conquerors in planetary history. The sparrow is not a passive inhabitant of our world. It is a ruthless evolutionary shadow that hijacked human advancement, utilizing our ships, our agricultural revolutions, and our concrete cities to mount a silent global invasion that has driven rival species to the brink of extinction. While apex predators like lions and eagles face catastrophic population declines in the modern world, the house sparrow has built a global empire that spans from the freezing subarctic regions of Norway to the sweltering desert oil rigs of the Middle East. It has accomplished this unprecedented geographic conquest by abandoning the laws of the natural wilderness and forging a parasitic, ironclad biological alliance with humanity. The sparrow does not need forests, pristine rivers, or ancient jungles. It breathes in the exhaust vents of skyscraper air conditioners, feeds on the grain spills of industrialized ports, and navigates our toxic urban landscapes with a biological engine that can adapt to almost any poison, climate, or dietary shift. This is a raw, untold chronicle of the Chidiya, a primitive, seed-eating finch from the ancient Middle East that cracked the evolutionary code of human civilization to become the ultimate global survivor. The origin story of the house sparrow is a fascinating saga of rapid, human-driven evolution that began roughly 11,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East. Before this period, the ancestral sparrow was a rare, nomadic seed-eater, confined to open grasslands and highly vulnerable to seasonal food shortages and natural predators. However, when early humans invented agriculture, cleared the natural wilderness, and built the first permanent farming settlements, they inadvertently created a massive, high-calorie biological vacuum. The vast stores of harvested grain, the endless piles of organic waste, and the shelter provided by early mud brick houses offered a paradise of resource abundance that had never existed in nature. While other wild bird species fled from human encroachment, the ancestral sparrow did something radically bold. It walked directly into our settlements and changed its genetic blueprint forever. Over thousands of generations, the forces of natural selection within human villages stripped away the bird's migratory instincts, transforming it from a wandering wild nomad into a strictly sedentary, urban specialist. Its beak structurally adapted to crush hard, cultivated agricultural grains like wheat and barley, and its digestive system evolved unique genetic traits to efficiently process starches. By tying its destiny completely to the plow and the silo, the sparrow effectively detached itself from the natural ecosystem, turning humanity into its permanent provider and setting the stage for a global takeover. To survive the transition from clean natural habitats to the highly polluted, chaotic world of human civilization, the house sparrow developed a highly resilient physiological framework designed to withstand immense environmental stress. Weighing a mere 30 grams, the bird possesses a hypermetabolic engine supported by a heart that beats up to 800 times per minute during intense activity. This rapid circulatory system allows for the near-instantaneous delivery of oxygen to its flight muscles, giving the sparrow explosive, vertical takeoff capability that is essential for evading urban predators like feral cats and speeding motor vehicles. Their digestive architecture is a masterclass in opportunistic omnivorism, capable of extracting nutrient from almost anything a human society discards. While their primary diet remains seeds and grains, urban sparrows can easily digest processed human foods containing high levels of complex carbohydrates, fats, and sugars, including bread, fast food scraps, and synthetic waste. When raising their chicks, known as pinkies, adult sparrows instantly switch from seeds to a high-protein diet of insects, hunting down flies, spiders, and moths attracted to artificial city lights. This absolute dietary plasticity means that while specialized forest birds starve when their native food sources disappear, the sparrow's food supply expands proportionally with human waste, making them completely immune to environmental famine. The gentle, domestic image of the backyard Chidiya is completely shattered when one observes their brutal, highly competitive behavioral mechanics in the wild. House sparrows are highly aggressive, fiercely territorial martial artists that utilize pack tactics and raw physical dominance to seize nesting sites from native bird species. They do not build fragile, delicate nests in distant trees. They violently colonize the cavities of buildings, roof tiles, and electrical boxes, packing these spaces with massive, messy domes of straw, plastic string, and feathers. When a pair of sparrows targets a nesting cavity already occupied by a native bluebird, swallow, or martin, they launch a coordinated, merciless assault, utilizing their heavy, crushing seed-eating beaks as lethal weapons. Sparrows will enter a rival nest, physically attack the adult birds, smash their eggs, and execute their chicks to claim the territory. Their social structure is governed by a strict visual hierarchy where males display a patch of black feathers on their chest known as a bib. The larger and darker the bib, the higher the male's testosterone levels and dominant status within the flock, allowing them to control prime feeding grounds and dictate collective movements through aggressive physical posturing and unrelenting vocal dominance. As human civilization expanded out of the Fertile Crescent and built massive intercontinental trade networks, the house sparrow was poised to launch its global conquest. The invention of wooden sailing ships, international rail networks, and transatlantic steam vessels provided the perfect mechanical transport vectors for this opportunistic hitchhiker. Sparrows would enter grain warehouses at shipping ports, fly directly into the holds of cargo ships to feed on the stored livestock feed, and remain trapped inside as the vessels crossed vast, impassable oceans. This accidental transport system transformed the sparrow from a regional agricultural pest into a global maritime invader. By the mid-19th century, humans themselves began actively accelerating this invasion, intentionally capturing and introducing the sparrow into new continents under the deeply mistaken belief that they would control insect pests in urban parks. Little did these early human societies know that by intentionally releasing this hyper-adaptable, highly aggressive colonizer into new, unprotected ecosystems, they were unleashing a biological wildfire that would sweep across continents, dismantle native avian populations, and demonstrate the terrifying power of human-assisted evolution. The true global potential of the house sparrow's invasion became terrifyingly apparent in the year 1851, when a small group of prominent citizens in Brooklyn, New York, intentionally released 8 pairs of European house sparrows into the local environment. Driven by a romantic, misplaced sense of nostalgia for the sights and sounds of the old world, and desperate to find a biological solution to an ongoing caterpillar infestation that was defoliating the city's shade trees, urban planners believed the sparrow would act as a gentle guardian of their public parks. This single, well-intentioned ecological mistake acts as one of the most explosive and catastrophic biological introductions in modern history. The New World provided a pristine, resource-rich paradise that completely lacked any natural evolutionary checks or balances against the sparrow's specific survival strategies. Finding an endless expanse of growing cities filled with horse manure, which contained undigested grain, and thousands of newly constructed wooden buildings with perfect nesting cavities, the introduced sparrows entered a phase of exponential, hyper-accelerated population growth. Within a few decades, those original 16 birds multiplied into hundreds of millions, their offspring spreading outward from New York like a biological shockwave, colonizing every major American city, town, and farming village at a rate of over several hundred miles per year. As the sparrow swarm blanketed the American continent, the early romantic fascination quickly curdled into profound public alarm and legal warfare, sparking what historians call the Sparrow War. Renowned American ornithologists realized that the aggressive invaders were systematically driving native North American cavity-nesting birds, such as the eastern bluebird, the purple martin, and the cliff swallow, out of their ancestral habitats. The sparrows did not merely compete for food. They formed organized urban mobs that swarmed native birds, destroying their nests and monopolizing agricultural grain supplies to such an extent that farmers began reporting catastrophic crop losses across the Midwestern grain belts. The backlash from human society was swift and violent, as governments and citizens realized they had accidentally engineered their own ecological nightmare. Cities established bounties for dead sparrows. Schools organized student clubs to tear down sparrow nests with long poles, and poisoning campaigns were launched on a massive scale across public squares. Yet, despite the full weight of human anger and industrial eradication efforts, the sparrow's highly advanced reproductive cycle and tactical urban camouflage allowed it to effortlessly absorb the losses. The sparrow had successfully outmaneuvered human technology, proving that once a species seamlessly integrates into the physical infrastructure of human civilization, it becomes completely untouchable by human violence. The most extreme, violent, and tragic chapter in the history of the house sparrow occurred in the late 1950s within the People's Republic of China during Chairman Mao Zedong's massive societal mobilization known as a Great Leap Forward. Identifying the sparrow as a critical economic enemy of the state, Chinese officials calculated that a single sparrow consumed roughly 4 pounds of grain per year. Therefore, a population of millions was viewed as a direct threat to the nation's food security. In 1958, Mao officially signed a decree launching the Four Pest Campaign, a state-sanctioned war of total extermination targeted directly at rats, flies, mosquitoes, and the Eurasian tree sparrow. The scale of the mobilization against the sparrow was completely unprecedented in human history, turning an entire nation of hundreds of millions of citizens into active combatants against a single avian species. Across every city, village, and farm in China, populations were ordered to synchronize their efforts. Citizens beat pots and pans, beat drums, and blew whistles continuously for days on end to create a deafening wall of sound across the sky. This psychological acoustic warfare prevented the terrified sparrows from ever landing to rest or feed. The exhausted birds flew in frantic, panicked circles until their tiny hearts failed, dropping out of the sky by the millions into the streets below. The human victory over the sparrow was swift, absolute, and utterly catastrophic. Within a year, the sparrow population of China was driven to near total extinction, its voice completely silenced across the landscape. However, this artificial disruption of a natural balance exposed a profound ecological ignorance of the campaign. Sparrows do not merely eat grain. They are critical biological regulators that consume massive quantities of destructive insects, particularly during their breeding season when their chicks require high-protein food. With the sparrow completely removed from the food chain, there was nothing left to check the reproduction of agricultural pests, triggering an immediate, apocalyptic population explosion of locusts and grasshoppers. The incoming clouds of unchecked locusts swept across China's agricultural heartlands like an unstoppable plague, devouring crops, defoliating forests, and completely destroying the nation's rice and wheat production. This ecological collapse, combined with severe weather and economic mismanagement, plunged the country into the Great Chinese Famine, a horrific humanitarian disaster that resulted in the deaths of tens of millions of people. Realizing the fatal error of their war against the bird, the Chinese government immediately halted the campaign against the sparrow, rushing to import hundreds of thousands of live sparrows from the Soviet Union to stabilize their broken ecosystem, forever proving that this humble bird is a load-bearing pillar of the environmental architecture that sustains human life itself. Having survived the violent eradication campaigns of both the Western world and the Far East, the house sparrow entered the late 20th century as an untouchable master of urban adaptation, evolving specialized sensory and psychological traits tailored specifically to exploit the architecture of the modern megacity. To survive in these hyperstimulating, artificial environments, the sparrow's brain underwent a rapid evolutionary restructuring, maximizing its cognitive flexibility and spatial memory. The modern city sparrow is, in essence, a biological cryptid, an animal that has completely mapped the psychological rhythms, architectural designs, and behavioral patterns of human societies. The primary weapon in the sparrow's urban survival toolkit is its hyperacute, multi-channel auditory processing system. In the deafening roar of modern cities, filled with a low-frequency rumble of diesel engines, industrial sirens, and construction noise, standard avian communication is completely drowned out, rendering traditional bird songs useless. To counter this acoustic barrier, urban sparrows structurally altered their vocal mechanics. They shifted their songs to a significantly higher pitch and increased the velocity of their chirps, effectively cutting through the heavy wall of human industrial noise. This allows a sparrow nesting inside a high-voltage transformer box to communicate critical alarm signals and territory boundaries to its flock across a 6-lane highway without a single note being lost to city static. Furthermore, the sparrow developed a highly advanced psychological trait known as tactical neophobia, an intense, deeply calculated skepticism toward unfamiliar objects paired with an immediate, rapid exploitation of new food sources. When a sparrow encounters a new human invention, such as an automatic glass sliding door at a supermarket or an outdoor cafe seating area, it does not flee in terror like a wild forest bird. Instead, it sits at a safe distance, utilizing its high-speed visual processing to observe human behavior. As soon as it decodes a pattern, It masterfully utilizes the opening doors to enter air-conditioned buildings to steal food from bakery aisles, demonstrating a level of mechanical problem-solving that challenges the traditional definitions of animal intelligence. This behavioral brilliance is supported by an internal biological clock that has been completely rewritten by artificial light pollution. Pigeons and other diurnal birds are strictly bound by the natural cycles of sunrise and sunset. However, the house sparrow has successfully detached itself from the solar calendar. By exploiting the continuous glow of high-intensity stadium lights, highway street lamps, and neon billboards, sparrows have created a new evolutionary niche, the nocturnal urban hunter. They remain highly active long after dusk, hunting down swarms of insects attracted to city lights and feeding their chicks around the clock, doubling their reproductive output and solidifying their dominance within the concrete canyons. The final chapter of this epic evolutionary odyssey brings us into the 21st century, where quiet, deeply unsettling mystery is unfolding across the great cities of the world: the sudden, catastrophic decline of the house sparrow. After executing a flawless global conquest that spanned thousands of years and survived state-sanctioned wars of extermination, populations of the Chidiya are suddenly plummeting by over 80% across historic urban strongholds like London, Paris, and New Delhi. The very bird that successfully hacked the ancient agricultural revolution and the industrial rise of humanity is now struggling to survive the dawn of the hyper-digital, glass and steel modern era. Scientists, ecologists, and urban planners are racing to decode the complex, overlapping environmental factors driving this silent collapse, revealing that our latest technological advancements are inadvertently poisoning the sparrow's specialized urban niche. The transition from old, brick-and-mortar buildings with loose tiles and crumbling mortar to seamless, airtight glass skyscrapers has completely erased the nesting cavities the sparrow relies on to raise its young. Furthermore, the massive use of chemical pesticides in modern urban landscaping has triggered a catastrophic collapse in native insect populations. While adult sparrows can survive on junk food scraps, their newly hatched pinkies possess fragile digestive tracts that require pure insect protein, leading to mass starvation within urban nests. This sudden vulnerability exposes a profound, poetic truth about the relationship between our two species. The sparrow is the absolute biological mirror of human civilization. When our cities were dirty, organic, and filled with horses, grains, and open spaces, the sparrow flourished as an unstoppable colossus. Now that our cities are becoming sterile, sealed, and saturated with high-frequency electromagnetic radiation and chemical toxins, the sparrow is the first to falter. They function as the ultimate ecological canary in the concrete coal mine, their declining numbers warning us that the hyper-artificial environments we are constructing for ourselves may ultimately become hostile to biological life itself. The story of the house sparrow is an immortal testament to the power of shared destiny, illustrating how a humble seed-eater from the ancient Middle East could rise to walk hand-in-hand with the masters of human history. They did not conquer the planet from a distance. They did it by nesting in our roofs, eating from our tables, and singing their sharp, metallic songs through the smoke of our revolutions and the quiet of our mornings. Whether facing a dramatic modern decline or preparing for its next rapid evolutionary leap inside our shifting megacities, the house sparrow remains an irreplaceable monument to resilience, a brilliant, fierce little shadow that bound its soul to the human journey, ensuring that as long as humanity has a home on Earth, the Chidiya will be there to claim its share of the world. The epic 5-part chronicle of the urban colonizer is now complete. If this deep dive into the hidden warfare, ecological dominance, and modern mystery of the humble Chidiya completely shattered your perception of this backyard bird, let your voice be heard by leaving a comment below. To ensure you never miss our next cinematic journey into the shocking, hidden histories of the animal kingdom, make sure to follow this saga. Thank you for witnessing the legend of humanity's closest avian shadow.